Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to BNN with our favorite Ayasoma! Yay! So 3 cheers for Ayasoma, who after much ongoing pressure has finally agreed to share Dharma once again, despite complaints and resistance. Here she is in front of us. Because, as we all know, she always has something valuable to say. So we're delighted that she's going to speak Dhamma this evening. Hello to some friends joining in. Hello, Elaine, Tanyana, Priyakant, Kevin, Ron, Bradley, Anat, Janice, and Richard. Welcome, everyone. Happy to see you joining in. Hello, Marielle and Victor. So as usual, we'll start by chanting the Ratana Sutta together. Then after the Ratana Sutta, we'll do some meditation and listen to a Dhamma talk. So I'll pass it over to Aya for leading us in the chanting.
All right, thank you, Jonathan, for that very excited introduction. And thank you all for joining us this evening. So, as Bhante mentioned, we will be chanting the Ratana Sutta as usual. And we will be dedicating it to all the victims of social injustice. So we can keep that in our minds and all the people, the Black people in this country who have been facing oppression for centuries. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yani da bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantaleke. Sabe bhabuta sumana bhavantu atopi saka chasunantu bhasitam. Tasmahi bhutani sameta sabe metam karota manusiya pajaya. Devacharato chaharanti ye baling tasmahi nera kata apamata. Yan kinchi vitang etavahurang vasage suvayang ratanang panitang. Nano samangati tathagatena irampi bunte ratanang panitang. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Kayang viragam amatang panitang yadan jagasa kyamuni samahito. Natena dhammena samati kinchi edampi dhamme ratanam panitang. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Yang buddha seto parivannai suching samadhimanantari kanyamahu. Samadhina tena samo navinjati dampi dhamme ratanang panitang. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye bhungala tasatang pasata chatari etani yugani honti. Te dakineya sugata sasavaka ete sudinnani mahapalani. Yedampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena sachena suvati hotu.
เยสุปยุตตามนัสสะดัลเหนานิกามิโนโกธรรมสาสนัมหิเทภาติภาตามตังวิกายาลันทามุทานิมบุติงปุญจมานังเอดัมปิสังเขรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุปาติโหตุยะทินดาคีโลภัทวิงสิโตสิยาชตุพิวาเทปิยสัมปะคัมปิโยชาตุปมังสัมบุริสังวดามิโยอริยสัจฉานิยเวชภัสสติเอดัมปิสังเขรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุเยอริยสัจฉานิวิภาวยันติกัมพีรพัญเยนะสุเดสิตานิคินชาปิเทหนติปุสสะปมาตานาเทภวังอาธรรมังอาดิยันติเอดัมปิสังเขรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุปาติโหตุ
สหาว
าสดาสนะสัมปดายาทายาสุธรรมาจหิทาภวันติสกายเดติปิจิกิจิตัญชาสีลัมมตังวาปิยตัตติกินจิชาตุหภาเยหิจเวปมุตโตชาชาภิธานานิอภัมโมฆาตุมเอดัมปิสังเขรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุคินชาปิโสคัมมังคโรติภาปะคังคาเยนะวาจาอุรเจตสาวาอภัมโบโสทัสสะปฏิชาดายาอภัมมทาเดตปตัสสะพุตตาเอดัมปิสังเขรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุปาติโหตุวานาปะกุมเมยถาปุสิตาเกยิมมานามาเสปัตมัสมิงเกมเพทาตุปมังธัมมวรังอเดสัยนิบานากามิงมารมังกิตายาเอดัมปิบุญเทรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุวโรวรัญโยวรโดวราหโรอนุตตโรธัมมวรังอเดสัยเอดัมปิบุญเทรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุขีนังปุรานังนาบังนาติสัมภวังเวรัตจิตตายติเกภวัสมิงเทขีนาบิจาวิรุลิชันดานิบันติทิรายตายังปดิโปเอดัมปิสังเขรัตนังปณิตังเอเทนะสัจเจนะสุวัตติโหตุญาณิทาพุทธานิสมากตานิภูมานิวายานิวันตะเลเกตถากตังเดวมนุสสพุจิตังบุตตังนามัสสามสุวัตติโหตุญาณิทาพุทธานิสมากตานิภูมานิวายานิวันตะเลเก
ตถาคตัมเดวมนุสสพุจิตัง
ธัมมังนามัสสามสุวัตติโหตุญาณิทาพุทธานิสมากตานิภูมานิวายานิวันตะเลเกตถาคตัมเดวมนุสสพุจิตัง
Tam namasama
Subhati hotu.
Etena
Sachavanjena dukkha pasamentu te. Etena sachavanjena bhayavu pasamentu te. Etena sachavanjena rogavu pasamentu te. Okay, and welcome to Stacy, Melinda, Carol, and Ethan. And at this time, we can follow Ayasoma's meditation instructions.
All right. So you can get into a comfortable position. Making sure our back is upright. We can close our eyes or leave them slightly open if we're a little tired. You can take a few moments to settle into the body and relax any points of tension we might find. Taking a few deep breaths. We can relax our head, the forehead, the face, our jaw, our tongue. Relaxing our neck, our shoulders. Relaxing our torso, our belly, our arms and legs. Relaxing our breath. Letting it flow naturally. Lifting our attention and holding it to each in-breath and out-breath. Watching the experience of breathing. becoming more and more comfortable in the body with each in-breath and out-breath. Comfortable because we're present with the body right now. And as we become more and more in sync with the body, we can start looking at our mind to see if there are any strong emotions present, neutral emotions present, comfortable emotions present, uncomfortable emotions present. Whatever is there, we can take a few minutes to acknowledge it, take a few moments to acknowledge it. If there is agitation, we acknowledge there's agitation. If there is sadness, we acknowledge there is sadness. If there is happiness, we acknowledge there's happiness. And we can drop any label that we have, any idea that we have on the emotion. Drop everything and look at what this emotion feels like in the body. How does it manifest? Perhaps it's a constricting sensation in the chest. Maybe it's a tingling sensation in the throat. Whatever it is, we look at it, dropping any idea of the sensation, not wanting it to persist, not wanting it to go away, dropping any expectation towards this physical sensation and looking at it with as much interest we can cultivate. What does it feel like? observing the physical sensations of our emotions, no different than when we observe the breath, without any judgment, without any idea of what it's like, without any pre-existing thought about the emotion, but just with pure curiosity and willingness to know and understand our experience. If thoughts appear in the mind, we don't need to get involved with them. It is just dukkha arising and dukkha ceasing. We just watch our experience. Looking at the physical sensation of our emotional experience. Letting go of any urge for storytelling, letting go of any verbal interpretation, just being, staying with our experience. That is the only thing that is here, right now, present, worthy of investigation. And as we keep observing the physical experience of our emotions, we start noticing how it's constantly changing. Sometimes the same sensation is persistent. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it turns into something else. So we observe the impermanence of our experience without interfering with it, just observing. And the more we observe our experience, the more we realize the impermanence of our experience and how no matter what we want for it to be different or how much we want it to stop or to arise or to persist, it is not in our control. It is just the product of causes and conditions. Every moment is the product of causes and conditions. So how can this emotion be who we are? How can it be ours? How can it be us? If it doesn't belong to us, if we have no control over it. All we have control over is causes and conditions that we put in place right now. We can control the causes, but we cannot control the consequences. So may we all put in place causes and conditions for wholesome experiences to manifest in the future. May we create the causes and conditions for happiness to arise and for suffering to cease. May we put all our effort into uprooting the seeds of greed, hatred, and delusion from our mind, and to create the conditions for unconditional happiness to pervade our minds. So you can relax.
Okay, thank you, Aya. And welcome to a couple more friends checking in. Welcome Gita, Ratnayake, and Adriana. Good to see you joining in. So this evening we're starting an 8-talk series covering the Noble Eightfold Path, one step at a time. And today we're starting off with Samma Ditti, right view. And Ayasoma has kindly offered to share her perspective on right view. So whenever you're ready, Aya, please go ahead.
Thank you, Bante. So it's kind of interesting having to talk about right view, because it's one of those moments in my path towards awakening where there's been a little bit of an earthquake in what I thought up until now was right view, and what my mind is trying to figure out again, what is right view. And this happens periodically in my experience. Has been happening periodically since I started this path, and I think it's actually a very beneficial thing. It creates both uncertainty, it creates a little bit of a what's going on? What is the truth? But at the same time, it creates room, creates the conditions for really investigating the Dhamma, really understanding the teachings of the Buddha, and hence making more progress towards the path, towards the goal. So we hear a lot of, actually, Suzuki Roshi wrote this beautiful book, Beginner's Mind. So with the Zen mind, beginner's mind. So the encouragement for all of us to never settle in what we think is the Dhamma, not to ever settle in what we think is right view, not to settle with our understanding of how things are, but to always keep that fresh mind, fresh, bright mind, whenever we first encounter something, anything in the world, but first and foremost, the Dhamma. And it is just natural to become a little bit complacent in our practice. The more we keep practicing, the more we're like, oh yeah, I got this. Oh yeah, sure, I know what's wholesome, what is unwholesome. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I read the suttas. Yeah, I've listened to a bunch of Dhamma talks. But in reality, if we actually really understood the Dhamma, if we really understood the Dhamma, if we really understood the Four Noble Truths, then we will be awakened. So we need to constantly recollect how we're in fact still full of delusions. And if we have an understanding of the path, for the most part, it's theoretical, it's intellectual, and not experiential. So whenever these earthquakes happen in my mind, I actually rejoice in them, because it's once again a great opportunity to really check and think, am I really understanding this properly? Am I taking certain elements of the path for granted? And what is the state of my mind? How can I identify the wrong views that I'm still holding on, which clearly I am, because I'm not an awakened being? And which ones are the right views that I am developing that need to be cultivated? And to understand, for example, the sort of wrong view, because it's very difficult sometimes to As we always say, it's easier to kind of see our delusion in hindsight. So it's very clear to me, for example, my mind pre-teachings of the Buddha and post-teachings of the Buddha. So I remember clearly the delusions that I had in the past and that I have managed to dispel through this path. But of course, I have very little understanding of still the work that needs to be done. So give it a couple of other years, hopefully not eons, just years. I will be looking backwards and go, oh, okay, that's what that delusional monk was thinking about. Oh, what a cutie. But you can only make progress by having sort of taking it as a working hypothesis that you're not right. Perhaps you're not right in your understanding of the Dhamma. Perhaps this is not quite in accordance to the Dhamma. This is not quite in accordance to the Buddhist teaching. Because instinctively, we have all sorts of ideas. Up until modern science, the majority of people were pretty confident that the world was flat, that the earth was flat. That was our experience. Flawed experience of reality, or that the sun revolves around the earth. It's another sort of kind of experience that we have. Intuitively, we think that that is how things are. But then as we study science, then we're like, oh, actually things could be in a different way. Well, let me start investigating this. So in the same way, this is our Dharma practice. We start realizing, if we're truly honest with ourselves, that we come to practice with so many different ideas of this is right, this is wrong, this is the good way, this is the bad way, this is why such people behave, etc., etc. And then the Buddha says, most of the time, actually, stuff that is extremely full of common sense. And then you realize, well, common sense is not that common, because you're like, kind of like, oh, duh. And then you're like, oh, actually, really shocked by this, but why was I thinking differently before? And some other things that would just completely like cut out and reframe in whatever our pre-existing belief is. So a lot of times, my experience is that most of our Dharma practice becomes actually just stock phrases of the suttas. And the sort of conversations that sometimes we can have, even between monastics, but in general, just Buddhist practitioners, can be more on the kind of lawyery thing. Well, I have this proof of this sutta here and this sutta here and this sutta here, and I have these quotes, these kuttas, as I call them, sutta quotes, like fact snippets from here. And it was kind of like an Instagram battle of like sutta quotes. But are we actually investigating what these kuttas really mean? What is the point? What is the relevance to our lives? How do they fit in the whole scheme of the Buddhist path? Is it even the words of the Buddha what we're quoting? Most of the Pali Canon I repute being the words of the Buddha, and so do scholars, but scholars also say that some parts are not. So how can we have sort of wisdom developed that we can recognize what is right view and what is not right view, even within the suttas? Or do we just take that, oh, it's written there in the sacred text? Here I have a little sutta quote. Doesn't matter if you present me like 20 other sutta quotes from or 200 sutta quotes. I got this sutta quote here. So is that actually right view? And I would say that the Buddha always encouraged us not to mnemonically learn the teachings, but always experience them, see how relevant they are with us. Which is then in essence also what he tells, what he talks about also in the Kama Sutta, the famous Kama Sutta, of how to even kind of have even faith to pursue these teachings. Because, we can have lots of different ideas and views within the Buddhist teachings, which then, if we're not really understanding what they are, then we can start going, oh, but wait, there's actually that other spiritual tradition that has these other ideas, and this other one that has these other ideas, and this other one that has this other ideas. So how do you even know? So there are plenty of scholars that are very knowledgeable in Buddhism, in Hinduism, if you want to call it Hinduism, all the different beliefs and systems and spiritual systems that are grouped under Hinduism, Sikhism, Christianity, Islam, and so forth. So my understanding is the Buddha always tells us, really experience it, see it for yourself, investigate every single moment. How are things, and what is your experience in this moment here and now? And this experiential understanding is what starts eroding the wrong views, what starts eroding our beliefs, pre-existing beliefs. It's because we drop our idea, for example, of what our emotional state is. We drop all of that, and we actually just go and see actually all of this anxiety. Well, it's just here. And I can decide whether to keep on producing it and really going, this is me, mine, I want it, or letting it go. And being okay with its presence, not being indifferent to it, acknowledging it, still watching it, seeing it clearly with wisdom, understanding the impermanence of our experience, understanding oneself in every single moment, understanding causality, how there's always causes and conditions that come into being for every single experience that we have. And starting to always comparing our ideas, our thoughts with what the Buddha says. Looking not for sutta quotes to compete with others, to outsmart others when we're having debates, but rather looking at the Buddha as someone who's leading by example. So going, okay, well, how about I search for contexts, perhaps, that are similar to my experience, where I can see how an enlightened being, whether it's the Buddha or some of his enlightened disciples, how are they behaving in this sort of situation? How can I practice in that way more closely in accordance with Dhamma? So that's why I feel like whenever we are quote unquote debating with other practitioners, it's very important actually not to agree to disagree, Not to go, okay, well, I'm like this, accept me, but rather really get into that, wanting to investigate the teachings together. Not in the I'm right, you're wrong, but looking at our experience. Why do I hold this belief? Why do you hold this belief? And opening the mind to the possibility that the other person could be right. And really trying to look at the other person's perspective. Investigating the Dhamma, watching the Dhamma, seeing the Dhamma. And that's when we can make progress. And we'll have these earthquakes, we'll have this like, whoa. And it's unsettling, but also refreshing. Because then we start having deeper and deeper faith in the teachings of the Buddha and not, for example, in individuals who are talking about Dhamma. You don't have faith in me, you need to have faith in Bhakti Sudaso, Bhante Jay, or whoever, monastic or non-monastic, lay Dharma teacher, monastic Dharma teacher. Be disappointed in what they're saying or be elated in what they're saying. But rather, it becomes something that we are experiencing and creates the roots for the whole Noble Eightfold Path. It's a domino effect. Once we understand clearly the relevance, the importance, for example, of the 5 precepts even. Not because we're taking the precepts if we're born Buddhist, because our parents brought us to the temple and because the monk told us that it's wholesome, and doing other things it's unwholesome, or as converts, because whatever, it's kind of like traditional or something, or whatever, we got to do it. But rather because we watch, we observe our mind, and we start seeing experientially for ourselves how abstaining from harming others, abstaining from killing sentient beings produces a wholesome mind state, for example. And we start also observing when the other happens. When we kill an insect, when we harbor ill will in our mind, that suffering arises. So dependent origination doesn't become this abstract thing anymore. It becomes closer and closer to our experience. It's not just something that, oh wait, which one was the chain link? I don't remember anymore, but it becomes something like, oh, I see. There is causes and conditions. We don't have to believe in rebirth. But rather, the more we experience, we start looking at causality, the more we understand experientially that there can't be birth, death, and that's it. That it's always a loop. You can't create the causes without the consequences. You can't just always have cause, consequence, cause, consequence, cause, consequence, cause. Oh, well, on this one, we don't have any consequences. Consequences just like fell off, stripped away. So it's always looking, investigating the Four Noble Truths, investigating the 3 characteristics. And then, of course, we develop right intention. And then, of course, right speech and right action, and right livelihood, domino effect, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Everything comes much easier, comes as a natural sort of, you don't have to force it. It's a natural consequence because we're inclining our mind towards the Dhamma. Hence, there's no other way for us to practice than to practice outside of the Dhamma. No matter what the external world tells us, no matter if we're praised or blamed for our actions, we have a confidence of, by saying this, there are these results. By doing this, there are these results. By practicing in this way, I see that I'm reaping the results of them, reaping the fruits that the Buddha talks about. So always, once again, doing this work with ourselves and always coming back to what did the Buddha say? How did the Buddha act? How did his disciples act, behave? And checking. Being open, embracing change, embracing the earthquake in the mind, not settling with our pre-existing understanding of the Dhamma, but always trying to really look, investigate it further, move forward in the path. And so that's how we keep a Zen mind, beginner's mind, in my experience, by being open and receiving. And that's also how wholesome mind states become stronger and stronger within us. How we start acting by compassion, by kindness. Those are the motivating factors, not the praise and blame, not what we think we're supposed to do or what kind of view we're supposed to hold. Rather, what is the appropriate response in every moment? What is beneficial to the people that I have around? What is beneficial to myself? So I guess this is all that comes to mind as a stream of consciousness tonight. Perhaps we can move to questions so we can spice things up.
Okay, well, thank you, Aya, for sharing words of Dhamma. And at this time, if anyone has any questions or comments, please go ahead and type them in. There's a couple comments already. So Bradley says, those moments where I have to put my money where my mouth is are really true tests of the strength of my practice. And Adriana says, 2020 has definitely gifted us many opportunities to put our money where our mouth is, for sure.
Well, 2020 has given us many opportunities for earthquakes to happen in our experience and to start questioning also, our idea of normality. I think this is one of an indirect blessings of this sort of catastrophe that has happened, is really to question is, what we were attached to being normality, if that was actually a sort of wholesome normality, or if it was in fact the causes, created lots of causes and conditions for suffering. So it's always good, to reflect on these things and perhaps go, well, maybe we should change a few things here and there. For example, the fashion industry that I used to work in, I come from Italy, for those who don't know. That was my livelihood a while back. And a lot of the sort of famous luxury brands come from Italy. And it's quite interesting that after this big tragedy, happened all over the world, and Italy, of course, was one of the most hit countries, from the extremely consumer mentality that was existing before, where there was like 5 collections, 6 collections, 8, 10 collections, I don't even know anymore. We're like, I don't think actually it's appropriate to get back to that. So there's sort of getting back to a less consumeristic attitude, not pushing people to crave more and more things, that once you purchase one thing, it's already out of fashion. So you need to have the special connections to get the item that will be in vogue in a couple of months, but you need to be connected again, very well connected. So everything is obsolete the moment you purchase it. So slowing down a little bit. So lots of these conversations that I was like, wow, it's really interesting, very positive, very refreshing. So a lot of renunciation actually, just in that, and scaling back in one of the most profitable industries in my country. So yeah, questioning the normality.
And Bradley says, I always think of the sutta on the simile of the saw when the Buddha says it's easy to be sweet when nothing unpleasant happens to you, but how do you respond when the going gets rough?
Yeah, another, I have to say, precious teaching that has come in my personal experience in the past months has been also understanding that the Buddha always had an appropriate response. So all the teachings he gave are not, once again, just a bunch of sutta quotes here and there, like quirky quotes that then we can repost, but rather there's always an appropriate time to deliver that teaching. So it's not that, for example, if someone was suicidal, that the Buddha would start teaching contemplation of death. That wouldn't have been an appropriate response. So there's time and place for every teaching, and time and place always to, not time and place, but every teaching was always given with infinite compassion, knowing exactly what the person in front of the Buddha needed to hear, to open the heart and mind to understand the Dhamma. And this, I kind of always knew that, but I have to say in the past couple of months, I realized that obviously not having developed that parami like a Buddha, sometimes I can fail at doing that, and it's totally okay in the sense, it's not okay, but it's totally okay in terms of being okay with myself, going, okay, well, obviously it's part of the path. Learning, understanding. In the past, I behaved in a certain way. Now I can create new conditions, new actions. That was inappropriate during those circumstances. How can I do better in the future? And that's once again when we feel then the practice becomes renovated, becomes more joyful. You're like, yeah, I have some work to do, but this is great. I'm not just sitting and thinking, oh yeah, I know everything, I know all. I don't know anything, and I don't know all at all. Otherwise, it would be an awakened being.
And Einat says, one of my favorite things about the Buddha is that he said we have to experience things for ourselves to discover the truth. And it is not enough to read or hear it from any source.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Dhamma has to be lived. So I always encourage myself, and hence I encourage others, not to take things for granted, not to just believe in something just because someone tells you that these are the words of the Buddha. But whenever you hear that there's something that doesn't feel quite right, to investigate it, while always keeping the mind open, obviously, that wherever the source where you've heard it, that either the monastic or the layperson could be right, but also that they could be wrong. And what is your experience towards it? And bringing questions based on your experience rather than the intellectual understanding. So going, okay, how is this relevant to me? And in this particular moment in time, I feel this way. Can you explain to me further? So the Buddha always encouraged us to go to senior practitioners and ask them. And I have to say, I've had the incredible privilege of running this organization for the past 4 years. And normally when it's not kind of pandemic, we have lots of senior monks coming here. And I've had lots of opportunities to ask them so many questions throughout the years, which I realized recently that it's actually a luxury that the majority of monastics don't have, of both genders, particularly the female gender, but also the male gender, actually. So what a beautiful thing, what a beautiful opportunity, what incredible karmic conditions I've had, actually. So hopefully we'll get back the senior monks here at Buddhist Insights once the pandemic will be over.
And Kevin says, with the internet, globalization, corporate news, etc., cultivating right view is very challenging. So much information, hard to decipher what's what. But I guess that's more mundane view type stuff. I imagine the Dhamma is the only right view that matters.
Well, once again, all of this stuff, one needs to go back to the Dharma. So the Dharma is the actual heritage that we have, like the right view that we need to that becomes the, the meter of comparison for our experience. So it's not about searching for truth somewhere else, whether it's the different sources of information. There were just as many in the past. They were just different types. So I don't think that we have this sort of idea that our experience is so much more unique than 2,500 years ago, but I don't think so. Fundamentally, people are people, and they're just communicating in a different way. And yes, perhaps politics are more global rather than local. But still, even in the local, you would have the global because that was your world. Perhaps it wasn't from, it wasn't the whole sphere. You weren't aware that there was such a big world. But it's always a matter of like perception, whether something is small or big. So I would say that anything that I find in the suttas makes sense today, and everything that I find sort of in the news, if I look for an equivalent message in the suttas, I can find it. And that becomes your guide in understanding samsara and not getting confused and shaken away. But that's also why it's important, very important, to cultivate wisdom, clear understanding in meditation, to fortify, create that stability of mind that then allows you to do this work and not get swept away by all the winds in the world.
Yeah, so Kevin says, good point. We have Facebook. The Buddha had countless religions, sages, practices, etc. to convolute view.
Yes, actually quite a lot.
And Marielle asks, is it correct to see right view as a sort of intuition or inner voice we have inside, something that feels wholesome and peaceful?
No. No. So there are a few, it depends on how you qualify intuition, but normally intuition is, once again, what we were talking about in terms of, oh, the world is flat. I have an intuition that the world is flat. I go outside, I have the world, like the world is flat, right? So that's why you start from the theoretical understanding of, you get science books and you start studying about how the world is. And then you start, that sort of viewpoint makes sense to you. You start understanding the physics of the world, right? So in the same way, the mind is not much more different than the physical world. So we have lots of different intuitions of this is right and this is wrong. So we encounter the teachings of the Buddha. We study the teachings of the Buddha intellectually. We get an intellectual understanding, and then we start investigating that. And then while we are practicing, if there are certain things that don't sound like Dhamma to you, but are presented as Dhamma, then you should be investigating them and looking at them and watching them, and really both asking senior practitioners. I suggest more than one, asking as many as possible to have different viewpoints, and always matching them to your inner experience, inner understanding of the Dhamma. But it has to always be grounded in Dhamma. Otherwise, you create wrong view over the wrong view over the wrong view. And we've been doing this for countless lives, for eons, since discoverable beginnings. So I think we we should work more towards ending that.
So Marielle, while you were saying that, she wrote, no, but with intuition, I mean something not mental, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And Kevin is encouraging people to support the monastery. And Bradley is pointing out that the monastery survives entirely on the generosity of others. So thank you, both Kevin and Bradley, for the reminder. So if you would like to support us, you can go to our website, and there's different ways to support. You can also send us an email if you want to support in another way, and we can let you know how to help out. And that's the end of the questions. So if there's no other questions or comments, then we can go ahead and end for the evening. So thank you, Ayasoma, for taking the time to investigate the Dhamma and share it with us. Always wonderful to have you sharing Dhamma. So it looks like that's it for tonight. So we'll see you all tomorrow morning.
Which we'll be discussing tomorrow morning. There won't be sutta study, but there will be some reflections on racism and violence and the current events happening. So a lot of people asked us to do a bit of a sort of official talk on this, to share words and ideas. So that will be happening at 8 a.m. And so, trigger warning.
Yeah. And for those who are interested, several other monastics have also put out statements or talks on the subject, including Bhante Ji. Bhante Gunaratana had some very wonderful, lovely words to say on the subject. So we'll be making our own statements tomorrow morning. So we'll see you then. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.